Hey, I hope you're having an amazing week. When you listen to this episode, I'm going to tell you up front that this has nothing to do with tips for weight loss. It is connected to wellness, but I think it's super important to talk about things in a timely manner. And I've been struggling a little bit, to be honest with you, for the last week or two. And I'm working on that, and I've had some questions from you all as I've been working through it that just made me think about this topic. And the bottom line is, when I work with clients in our 12-week program, oftentimes they tell me, I want to lose weight and I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. And when we dig into really why they want that and what's going on, what they're really struggling with, yeah, they're struggling with the physical. I mean, you tell me that your body's not responding to eating healthy, and there are things we need to do nutritionally to get your metabolism working for you. But let me tell you, there is such an emotional component to life in general, but really specifically, there is a huge emotional component to what we're going through in this transitional stage in life. Like, everything about us changes during this time. It's not just that we're gaining weight around the middle and around our bra strap and under our arms are getting flabbier. And it's not just that we want to get that corrected. It's really that literally, like I said, everything in life is changing. Our kids are getting older and need us in different ways. They're moving out of the house. Our role as a mom is changing. And while we know logically, though, that's going to happen, right? When it starts happening, there's almost like this subversive undercurrent of emotion that starts to come up. Our career looks different. We're not necessarily building, for example, but we're looking at retirement in the next 5 to 10 years. Our relationship is changing. It's evolving. We're getting into those like 20 and 25 and 30 year kinds of anniversaries. And so just the natural course of life, everything is changing. And so what complicates that, I think, for us is that our body is also changing in not so great ways oftentimes. And so that kind of weighs on us. I guess that's a pun on, a play on words, but it's true. It's literal weight, physical weight, but it's also an emotional and a mental weight, how our body is changing. But then there's the added complication of the emotional transition that we're going through. And there's a lot of scientific reasons for that. Our hormones are changing, our brain chemistry is changing, and it can be affected by a lot of different things too. But bottom line, there is so much more to what's happening in our lives than just the physical. And back to, what I was saying when I first started three and a half minutes ago, I've struggled a little bit this week because one thing I think we all need to really understand is that once you get healthy, once you feel like you've kind of conquered that battle, it doesn't mean that it's smooth sailing from here on out. It doesn't mean that you will never struggle again. And I want to be really upfront with you and direct about that as it relates to my own life, because I never, ever want to portray this sort of false bravado or false image that I've cured everything, I've conquered it all, and I never ever have a down day, or I never ever struggle emotionally, or that I never want anyone to think that, oh my gosh, my life is just perfect, because it's not. I have a wonderful life. Don't get me wrong. We live a wonderful life, and I am extremely grateful, but it doesn't mean that I don't struggle. And it's very normal for you to struggle emotionally, despite having a happy family, loving your relationship with your partner, despite being happy in your career. You don't have to have something majorly wrong in your life for you to still struggle emotionally. Please hear that. Please hear that. So So again, I want to be upfront about the fact that I've been struggling for the last couple of weeks, and this is not atypical for me this time of year. I kind of struggle in the spring a little bit around this time, around my birthday. My husband Roger's birthday was yesterday. There's like a 2-week period of time that it just kind of, weighs on me a little bit differently. And I won't go into all the whys and wherefores of that, but it does. And then this year it was a little more complicated because of traveling. Our routine was disrupted around this time of year, and seasonally, this can be a pretty chaotic kind of environment in the spring, right? For us, we have lots of thunderstorms. The days are gloomy oftentimes. There are kind of these big swings of, a 90-degree day and sunny, or an 84-degree day and outside around the pool. And then boom, thunderstorms, 2 or 3 days of gloominess. And, today the temps are, I think, around 60. And, again, it's not a big deal, right? But it can be. And so those are all the things that complicate the emotional components for me. And I'm hearing from you this, similar kinds of things. Some of you have had 20 something inches of snow, and here it is April, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm looking forward to warm weather. And then boom, we have a blizzard, right? And it's okay that negatively impacts us. It really does. But there are some things I try to do so that I don't fall into that hole, and it doesn't continue longer than it needs to. I feel it, and I know that I have to take action to get myself back on track. And that's really why I wanted to do this podcast, this episode in particular, not only to say it's normal that it happens, and to be open with you and vulnerable about the fact that I'm kind of in the midst of one of those cycles, if you will, but also to talk to you a little bit about what I do and how I kind of pull myself, back out of that funk. And one of the big ones for me, and I think for a lot of us, is how we're surrounding ourselves, like the energy, the people, the messaging that we're allowing into our space and into our brains and into our emotional environment, right? And I think more and more these days, that can be related to the social media environment that we're putting ourselves in. For me, definitely, because a big chunk of what I do now, a big part of my business and my world and day-to-day work is on social media. But even if you don't have a job that puts you into that space, thrusts you in there for extended periods of time, many of you spend time on social media, and lots of time. And so I think it's really important for us to think about who we follow, even beyond that, because when you open social media, it's not just who you follow that you're seeing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I think it's really important for us to think about how we create that environment, because we can create it. We can shape it and mold it in either better or worse ways. And that's what I want to share with you today, is how I try to kind of manage and shape that environment so that it is a better environment for me personally. And this is all individual, right? But give you some ideas of how you can do that and kind of the bigger context around it. So one thing that I will say is social media is about connection, right? And you're choosing to connect with people when you open that platform. And this goes for, I'm not going to talk about any specific platform as I go through this, but it's about all of them, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn even, and I have a special place in not my heart for LinkedIn for a number of reasons, but whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, even here, if you're watching this podcast on YouTube and you spend a lot of time on that platform, all of them, there are some really general commonalities that they have. So what I'm talking about goes for any and all of them. So when you open any one of those platforms, what you see is really cultivated as a result of the choices that you've made by who you follow, for sure, who you're friends with, for sure, but also the things that you like, the things that you comment on, the things that you share out. You click that little share button and you send it in private messenger to someone, or your DMs, or you take it, you share it outside of the platform and you send it as a text message to a girlfriend or to WhatsApp or whatever. The things that you share also help to shape what you see. And so being mindful of that all the time, not just when you're kind of in a funk, but being mindful of the actions that you take while you're on one of those platforms and how they can impact what you see all the time is important. So a couple of things that I do. First off, I don't follow people who make me have any kind of a negative emotion. And I think that's something that we generally would say, like everybody would probably say, oh, well, I don't do that. I know not to associate with people or accounts that make me feel bad. But there's a part of us that kind of likes some of that. And so even without conscious decisions, I think sometimes it's like falling into deep dive when you see a video on a topic that may be a little controversial that you're interested in. Maybe it's a news topic. Maybe it has something to do with just in the last day or so. I'll give you an example. In the last day or so, there have been some decisions made around abortion. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with those or you disagree with those or what your beliefs are religiously or ethically or otherwise. This is still an example. Maybe you clicked on a story around that topic, and then from there, that prompted you to click on another story, and you kind of do this deep dive into wanting to know what's going on. And every time you do that, and you read more and more and more, you're teaching that platform the kind of thing you want to see. And so you're going to get more of those kinds of stories in your news feed, come up on your explore page, what have you. So sometimes it's just because, oh my gosh, I've seen this thing, I've read it, I'm interested in what's going on, and I kind of fall into that deep dive of wanting to be informed, but not really thinking about the more long-term effect of those options, those choices, impacting what you see next week and the week after. So just be mindful of that when you kind of do a deep dive, right? And we all know that we can't believe everything that we read on any site, social media platform, news site, whatever. So how accurate is the information anyway, right? So that's one of my tips. Be cautious of going from one link to the next, to the next, to the next when you are learning or reading. Another big area that I think we don't often think about just in a general sense is those platforms are really all about connection. And while we might get on there and want to connect in this really positive way, not everyone has those good intentions. And so just be mindful of that and unfollow, click off of anything that makes you feel icky in any kind of way. And that's a very general tip, isn't it? Right. But it's true. I follow accounts and I look at things that oftentimes have nothing to do with my world of business, because the people who do what I do, I find kind of repulsive, to be honest with you. And it becomes too easy for us to follow things or click on things and watch things or read things that we do find, the word I'll use again is repulsive, or that we disagree with, or that just make us feel bad. And then we fall into this trap of like comparing ourselves or having negative thoughts around whatever it is that we're seeing. for me, it's, weight loss and fitness influencers. And I think for a lot of women, if we're struggling with our own weight and our own body image and our self-esteem around what our body looks like, you don't even have to be in this business, right? Just like in general, you feel those ways and you're struggling with those feelings. And then maybe you've been on social media and you've been looking for like tips on nutrition or tips on workouts or what have you. And then all of a sudden now you find that all of these people are coming up in your feed, right? Well, how productive is it really? And here's one, I'm kind of like showing my hand on this. It is not productive for me to see, 20 something and 30 something in fitness influencers in my feed. It's just not. I'll just admit it. There's an emotion that wells up in me on a personal level. It's like, why are you lying to people? Like I watch that and I'm like, why are you lying to people? Doing that one exercise, for example, is not going to snatch someone's waist. So why are you lying? And I have that feeling from a business owner perspective, like actually being in the business and being irritated that, you're out there lying to women who desperately want to have a smaller waist, and your little 28-year-old body doing that one exercise and saying this will snatch your weight. Like, stop doing that. So I have that kind of raw emotion. But then for just as a female watching that, if I'm struggling with weight around my waist and I see this young woman who potentially maybe never even had kids, she definitely hasn't entered any kind of perimenopausal transition, and like, even though logically we know those things are different between our body and that person, it can cause you to have these negative kinds of emotions, and that makes an imprint on your system and it can carry with you. So be cautious of that. Just unfollow, click off of, don't watch that stuff. That's just one example. There can be a number of different topics where those kinds of negative, those flare-ups in your emotion might come up if you see that kind of a topic, right? It might be around your work. It might be around your personal beliefs. It might be around, family values and ideals, whatever it is. Be aware of that and don't fall into that trap. And then the flip side of that is I try to actively follow and engage with content that I do enjoy, that I do relate to, that does make me laugh, right? And most often it has absolutely nothing to do with my life professionally. And even I will say it has sometimes nothing to do with anything that I would ever partake in. So let me give you an example here. I love to follow gardening kinds of accounts, flowers, plants, information around that. I do not plant a garden. I have wanted to so badly. I want to be that person. And I really don't spend a lot of time like with plants, but I find it fascinating. And I will watch those kinds of accounts and I really enjoy them. And so those are the kinds of things that will pop up in my feed. But those make me feel good. Even if I never plan on having, ferns outside that I need to care for in the heat in Texas, I will watch accounts that give tips on that because I enjoy learning about it. It brings me peace to see people engaging in those kinds of activities professionally and as hobbies. And I just like it. And so find places like that you can enjoy that content, because that's going to cultivate a much more positive environment in your feeds. Other things to give you examples of stuff that I have nothing to do with and I'm not good at, but I love following women who are hairdressers. I love hearing about what they did to color this client's hair to get that, tipped out blonde look, or that, I don't know, surf hair, whatever it is. I wouldn't know the first thing about dyeing hair. I go and pay someone to do my hair, but I find it very relaxing to watch haircut videos, hair coloring accounts, hairstyling accounts, makeup accounts, home organization. Oh my God, that's one I really need to pick up some tips from. But I love watching accounts that share all kinds of home organization. I have ADHD and I can squirrel all day long. If you listen to this podcast, you probably you're thinking, oh, I know it's happened in the middle of podcast. But that's how my brain runs, on this highway system that is intertwining and crazy bizarre. And I would love to be more organized in my home, but I will watch those kinds of accounts until the cows come home, you guys. So click on, engage with, comment on. Don't just be a lurker too. That's another tip that I will have for you. If you want more of that kind of content in your feed, click on it, comment on it. Don't just like it, because when you comment on those accounts, not only are you helping, the person who's put that content out there for you, you have probably no clue as to how that makes us feel when you comment on our posts. And I know it seems that's a silly thing, but it really does make people feel and know that you appreciate that content and that it's helpful. So do it for that, but also do it for that cultivating your own feed in the way that you want, because when you comment on something, that is way more powerful in the algorithm to teach the algorithm what you want in your feed than just hitting a like or just scrolling or just clicking on the caption and reading it. You've got to actually take some action. So those are the kinds of things that I do. The other thing is I will actively kind of take a break from social media and really from a lot of the world in general. I will give myself, I call these brain and body breaks with my clients, but I will literally not just take a 15-minute or a 30 or 60 or 90-minute break, but I will take a day or two of a break from social media. And even though I work on it, there's a lot of my business runs on social media. It's how 90+% of our clients find me on social media. And so I value it greatly, but there are times where I will take 24 hours, 48 hours and just focus on my internal, emotional, and psychological health, my mental health. And it is a mental health issue. And it is one I don't think we spend enough time deliberately contemplating and actively behaving in ways to cultivate a more positive environment for our mental health. And that's kind of what I will end with, is think about ways that you can be intentional about cultivating a much more powerful and positive environment for you to live in, not just in the physical world, but in the virtual world too, because our mental health matters. And it is the bigger part, I will say it here, it is the bigger part of the work that I do with women like you who are struggling in so many ways through this transitional period of life. I've said it a million times. We all have to go through menopause, but we don't have to suffer through it. And it is not just a physical journey. It is an emotional and a psychological journey. And we need to actively attend to that in positive ways. So I hope you have found something helpful in today's chat. I would love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM. I'm in the need for some positive reinforcement. So send me a DM or rate and comment on this episode. Let me know what you've found helpful. And as always, I would love to hear what other kinds of topics you guys would like to hear me chat about on these episodes. So thanks for spending time with me. It means a lot to me and I appreciate you. So I will meet you right back here next time.